Good evening, good night, and welcome to Mindful Live. Welcome over there on Facebook. Welcome on Instagram. Welcome on TikTok. Have you talked about the Zosos? Yes, we have talked about the Zosos. But it's Thursday, and what we do on a Thursday is we talk about all kind of things. We could have a discussion. You could join the discussion. You could ask questions. You could enter the panel over on TikTok, where you could actually jump in and talk and tell me what you think also. So once you're on the inside, make sure you hit that like button, 2 taps on the screen out there on TikTok. Like it over there on YouTube. If you are viewing it on repeat, be sure you subscribe. Nathan Springer over on YouTube to be subscribed out there. You can catch all of the lives on repeat. They're also there on Facebook too, but I think they disappear after a while on Facebook. So there is that. All right, let's go live on Instagram and let's go live on Facebook too. Good night, Instagram. Good night, Facebook. Welcome. Pretend to work like the non-percenters. Was it passed in the Senate? Not to my knowledge. You know, speaking about whether it was passed in the Senate, I didn't actually pick back up on that if they went forward with passing it in the Senate. What did the independent senators do with the Prime Minister at their backs, insulting and looking to berate them? Did they go against the Prime Minister's wish and risk themselves being given that tongue lashing? Or did they go with the Prime Minister and risk it looking like if they were cowering to the Prime Minister's tirade? Loss of rights necessary in arresting crime, the minister says. I saw someone speaking about that on X. Where they were saying the idea that loss of rights is necessary to arrest crime is ridiculous. They adjourned it to continue tomorrow 1 p.m. All right. Well, I actually agree with that statement. I agree that in order for crime to be arrested, the chances are some of the rights that we are accustomed to, you may have to pause some of them. I think that's true. The whole problem with it is, do you trust the people that are aiming to pause your rights, that they are not going to abuse the power they get in that moment? Do you trust them to get things done on a stark basis? You do have to do some radical things. If you look at revolutionary times, nearly any revolutionary time, they pause certain rights, they change certain rights. You look at the U.S. during their Civil War, their president Abraham Lincoln, who they look now at as one of their best presidents. I think he might be rated, according to popular view, the best U.S. president by many. He quote-unquote freed the slaves, but he did it by cutting the entire country's rights. He halted rights. So I mean, I don't totally disagree. You may have to lose rights to get change, but do you trust these people? Good night. As I said, it's Thursday, and what we do on Thursdays, we talk. So if you're interested, you can feel free to ask questions over there on YouTube. You can ask questions on Facebook. You could ask questions on Instagram, and I will jump in with that. Good night, Brian Rogers out there on Facebook. Welcome. Damn UNC, I'm early. Why are you damning UNC already, sir? Nuggets Nugger. Our right to free movement and enjoyment of property is currently curtailed by the criminals. That's true, Keys EETV. Police shot a couple on Tuesday and said they saw 3 men in the car that were known to them. Otis. I remember that story because the first time I read this story, that was the version I read. Police saw these men and identified them in Maloney and tracked them from Maloney and had a roadblock waiting for them in Bassey Street Extension when they reached down in St. Augustine. But then I am reading now, the family is saying this is a delivery driver, and a hairdresser, I think, or a nail tech or something like that. They have a child together, no criminal record. How did the police identify? What did the police see when they saw them? Something doesn't add up there. Something doesn't add up there. And you see, that's kind of the problem with the sacrificing of your rights and all of that. It's exactly as I say, do you trust these people? Because many people in Trinidad will be excited by the idea of the police wiping out criminals. Wipe them out, kill them all. But then, when you have a police service that you may not necessarily trust on a whole by itself, how then can we enjoy them perpetrating violence when we don't trust that they would quote unquote perpetrate violence in our favor? How can you trust that? It's not necessarily only criminals. Quintrim says, how things, comrade. You see that comrade word? There's a C word for me. You're calling me the C word there. This comrade business. Brethren, cool with me. Brethren, cool with me. This comrade business. Them who call you comrade, watch them. Watch them carefully. But yeah. What else is in the news, people? These also I will have to see all the details of this also too. As much as lawmen lapsing on the job, current state of affairs don't afford the luxury. But the police deal with the criminals, they need to clean up the service first. I kinda agree with that, and that's been my view to a large extent for a while now. It's like, I understand the argument of sacrificing some rights to clean up the place. I understand it, and I kinda agree. But we know that a major part of cleaning up the place is the police service. So how about we see some radical rights sacrificing inside of the TTPS? We see some radical changes inside of the TTPS, and then the entire country feels a lot more comfortable to allow the radical changes throughout the regular society. Does that make sense to you? How do we, these also, but both can happen simultaneously? Yes, they can, Keys, but we aren't seeing them happen. That's the problem. It's only one is happening, it's only one is apparent. And that doesn't work. That wouldn't make sense. That's why we still have more than a murder a day. It doesn't make sense for you to become very serious and clamping down on the bottom rung of the criminality while doing nothing about the facilitators. And what I'm saying is I'm in agreement with you. I am not saying to leave the bottom rung alone, to leave the small fish alone. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you're doing that and you want the public to take you seriously, then we have to see something happening on the other side also. I know Quintrim, but generally speaking, comrade is used by the left-wing side of the political divide, and I don't trust left-wing politics like that. I just don't. The idea seems unhuman. The idea that we're to trust general people, random people, to be as magnanimous as they could. Yeah, but that's the problem. Don't tell the public that we have to sacrifice our rights for change to happen, and we aren't seeing entire police squads being arrested. Just how you're doing a Zoso to cut up people's rights just so that you could get crime done, well, pass some legislation to cut up the police rights so that you could get the corrupt police arrested. When Gigi was in charge, senior officers were objecting making lie detector testing mandatory. I remember that. Their right to privacy. Why should they keep their right to privacy? I think since radical times call for radical measures, then we should allow the police to lose all of their rights to privacy. Allow all arresting officers to have their lives as an open book for investigators. Do something like that. At least show that it's happening on multiple sides. Good night, Reaper. Because there's no way you could clean up the criminality in this country when the facilitators remain where they are. If the facilitators are still in their positions, how are we going to clean up the thing? And we have a police as our Homeland Security Minister, a police who I don't think is able to really call police out. I don't think I've ever heard him done it. Police are perfect in his eyes. Police are perfect in his eyes. So how do we expect anything to change within the police service? Hi, Shan. And Trini, that is exactly the thing. See, that now opens the kind of rooms for public officials' lives to be open books. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. If you're telling me you're serious about cleaning it up, well then be serious about cleaning it up. Otherwise it feels like you're mama guying me. You're mama guying me, telling me about where we need to sacrifice rights, but that's the only place that rights seem to be sacrificing. How does that work? How does that figure? If it's a small price to pay, let everyone pay the price. It shouldn't just be the regular poorer classes of people. When they say clean up, they mean dismantling all the independent agents and gangs and consolidate crime and drugs under an arm of the TTPS and friends. That's not me saying this. That is you, a user over there on TikTok, saying that. I am not saying that. I don't know that to be a fact, but if you say so, you. And if there are allegations, there have always been allegations, always, many allegations, that lots of the drug blocks, lots of the drug hotspots in this country are overseen by senior police officers. Those are the allegations out there. Then is it any surprise that the country has been in a state of emergency for a year, and we have had the strongest military in the world on our borders fighting the drug traffickers, yet still the drug use and drug sales in the country seem unaffected? How am I to believe you? Here's what the TTPS, the line they're going to have to dance even in the Zoso. When they Zoso an area, The big boss in that area doesn't want his money to stop flowing from the blocks in the area. So they're going to have to try to make sure that there's no violent crime happening in the area, but they're still going to have to try to allow the drugs to run. These also is going to be very interesting. Someone needs to have an anonymous profile that goes around to the various blocks in Trinidad and Tobago just to see if they're still functioning. And while this is also going on, go in that community and see if you could still get a quarter pound or a quarter ounce. Or see if they still, look for the guy who walk in kind of sporadic and see which direction he heading in and see if he could still go and get his fix. See if all the pipers in that community all of a sudden start to go through withdrawals, or if they're still getting their drugs some way or the other. Otis, you looking for real trouble, eh? Right now it's citizens versus police versus criminals, Keys, EETV says. It certainly can feel like that. And that's why I am to some extent, to a large extent, in favor of opening up the right to own firearms in this country. Because it takes away the monopoly on power and violence that the police service has. I think an armed population in this country would change the factor as pertaining especially to the police service. And on the governmental side, I will never take a government serious about crime in Trinidad and Tobago that doesn't, at the very jump, tackle the police service. Any government, any entity coming into this country and attempting to tackle crime, but not first starting at the judiciary and the police service, they're lying to you. They're not serious. They're joking about it. Look at the country, the main country right now in the world that you could look at as an example that successfully, drastically decreased their crime. El Salvador. And you look at where he started. One of the first things he did was he threw out the most senior judges. He switched up the top of the judiciary because that's what helped to keep the country in the way it was. You can't say that you're going to clean it up, but all of the facilitators are still in place. They're not trying to dismantle their very tools of oppression, my guy. I don't know if it's tools of oppression or just tools of money making. They're looking to make money. I don't think they're aiming to oppress people like that. They're aiming to make money. Oppression is just a happenstance side effect. How am I to believe that you're serious when step one is ignored? Financial oppression. Well, we could be heading for some of that under the present situation. Gas prices increasing. Some of the multinationals are leaving. How's it going to work out for everyone? I think I foresee some inflation locally. The decisions being made by the present government, whether it be good for the country in the long term or not, you could argue that. But it seems to me like it would lead to short-term natural gas prices. Yes, I know it's natural gas prices, but natural gas is used by manufacturers. Natural gas is what the manufacturers use to give us our manufactured products. So if their inputs are increasing in price, isn't it going to be an increase in price on the customer side? Kind of obviously. An increase in natural gas on the commercial and industrial side, it's either going to increase the price of the manufactured product, or the person isn't going to buy it anymore. You would be decreasing the amount of people willing to take part. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the price really was an impossible price to maintain. That might be the case. But isn't that the same argument that Imbert and those guys used for increasing the price at the pumps? For those of us who have no stake or loyalty to TNT, should we pack up and leave for better lands before chaos hits you, says? Well, if that's your ability, I don't blame someone for that at all. Yeah, Ronnie. Yeah, I think it is going to have an impact. It is going to have an impact. There are going to be some prices that are increasing. I saw the NGC board head was saying that they received that decrease. They've been receiving that decrease in prices for a while, and yet still the reciprocal decrease to the Trinidadian public hasn't been noticed. So that's why they're doing that. And again, maybe that might be true, maybe, but didn't seem like it was passing on the savings. So you increase their gas price. Do you think increasing their gas price? Do you think increasing their gas? That's no problem, Ronnie. That's why you're on admin. Do you think increasing their gas price is going to cause the prices to drop further? Like that's going to drop the prices somehow? I don't think so. I think it just trails itself going up the road. Higher prices all around.
Good night.
Good night, Ronnie.
What's going on? I missed the beginning. I was out and about. But as you're talking about gas and thing, I just wanted to be known. When this budget came about, I said this was an attack on manufacturers, because you're raising everything put into manufacturers. Every single thing. Their electricity has gone up. Their cost to operate is going up. Their employee NIS is going up, meaning their contribution to NIS has also gone up. Everything for manufacturers and business owners is going to be a bit harder. And you know what's so funny? Nathan, I almost call your next name, yes. The good thing is not my man. You always like to say, you like to say, you know, UNC, you read UNC on their ease of doing business. I don't think you can read them that anymore, you know. You can't read them that anymore because the ease of doing business is becoming less and less, and we will now see we will lose a significant amount of our business to Guyana. Most of our companies already in Guyana.
Yep.
And if Guyana is wise, they will give them all the incentives they need for them to come there.
That's true. A lot of the business, and I wouldn't blame a business person. If you're a business person in Trinidad and Tobago, I would encourage you, whatever you're doing in this country, attempt to mirror it in Guyana. And many people who have done such have seen growth in their businesses. And if that's the case, why would someone stay to fight up if they're getting better treatment elsewhere? And the thing is, squeezing the manufacturers wouldn't actually squeeze the manufacturers alone. it's part of the problem, as I regularly speak about my dislike for a lot of left-wing politics. It's part of the ignorance of like the whole tax the rich and hate the rich kind of side of politics, where it seems like people don't understand that one of the main things people like about being wealthy is it provides you with options. Wealthy people have options. They don't have to keep the company open and run at a bus and lose money just so NGC could get some money, so the country could get money and people could be happy. No, they could fold up the whole company, sell out everything and go and live in Florida in their other property. They could open a business in Guyana, run it in Guyana while they live somewhere else. That's what could happen. You know who would actually be affected? The workers in the company when it folds up. The people who reliably buy whatever the product is that the company is making. And the company stops doing that. They are the people that are going to suffer. They're talking about, for example, I think it's California was talking about a billionaire tax, trying to tax some more money from their billionaires because they have quite a few billionaires over there. And the billionaires just started to leave, obviously, because obviously that's what they will do. They're not just going to lose more money to you for the joy of it. They will do something else. The only people that are going to stay and pay are the people who cannot leave.
I also think too, good night everybody.
Good night.
I also think too that in an effort for doing a kind of balancing act, I think we so mixed up as a society based on standards of living, how available resources are to us. We kind of span out the entire budget that the country could ever present, you know. So the manufacturing sector, the small business owners, that kind of thing. And then a balancing act to kind of get more money in the purse kind of thing. That's why I'm thinking the government kind of trying to just kind of be profitable at some point, not realizing we got to do better at balancing, because you can't try to take money from the left pocket and put in the right pocket. You know, that kind of thing. I think that's one of the biggest issues I had with this budget presentation.
The thing is, the Prime Minister herself said it last 2 years or so in regard to Mr. Imbert, trying to tax yourself out of a difficult financial situation as a country is attempting to stand up in a bucket and lift it up. You can't lift up the bucket if you're standing in the bucket. All of the money that we could use as a country comes from us. If you take more from us, it's just we losing more to give us more. The money doesn't multiply elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all our money. So to take it from us more, it's just to put it in another direction. And then something that I pointed out, even looking at something as simple as the coconut vendor with the $19,000 in traffic offenses, and using that as a symbol of what the government is attempting to do. That coconut vendor is a more efficient member of our economy than anyone the government is going to reappropriate his $19,000 to. $19,000 used by that coconut vendor is going to have further purchase, have greater effect, have more positive knock-on effects in our economy if left with the coconut vendor than if we take it to the government and bust it up on government rent and public service arrears. That doesn't help.
I could use that 19,000. Mister, I will do very good with it. But no, I have proven I will not. But happy birthday to our dear friend there, our mindful OGs. Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday to Trini.
Yeah, big up that one time.
You're going to contribute to the
Go ahead, I ready to really, do that kind of thing tonight.
But that's what you had.
I want to do this whole Because I got really come here basically say the government not supposed to be doing anything that you all want them to do, and then you're going to tell me how that's the government's job. When that's not the government's job.
Who going to tell you that?
Nobody people that I'm speaking to, there's 90 people in the room now. You know what I'm saying?
I want the government to continue to do what they are doing, just add more. So you're an accelerationist. That's who you are. Yeah, I was talking about this the other night, and I pointed this out. Many accelerationists and parents. That's something that I've noticed, and I understand the accelerationism, especially as a young single person. Accelerationism makes sense. It's actually the most interesting thing too. You're going to see what happens. Ooh, that's exciting. But if you have vulnerable people to care about, chaos doesn't help you.
And that's the thing too, Nathan. You see, we having this conversation, and this conversation floating around based on the premise that the government actually cares, or the government have vision, or the government persons or officials are visionaries, or it's not just a job they want. It's actually just a job that we see from all angles. Somebody just trying to do a job to fit a place until they move from that place, full the pocket as much as they can, so again they'll have access to more resources for themselves and their families, and when they shit hit the fan, they fly out. And you see, we having the conversation based on the premise that these people actually care.
What's interesting is that you don't necessarily, like within today's kind of context, right? You don't necessarily see your former government officials flying out anyway. You know what I'm saying? You know what's kind of also interesting is this, right? While being a politician is a job, it's a career. They do see themselves as visionaries. I hope people understand this. They see themselves as the rightful people in order to lead the country in a direction to prosperity. They believe that wholeheartedly in one way or another, right? Either dictatorship or through democracy, right? Or through monarchy. It just is what it is. You understand what I'm saying? They believe that they could do the best for you because they are smarter. You understand what I'm saying? Not necessarily they want to pocket everything and dash and run. You know what I'm saying? They believe that they could tax you into prosperity. They could give you what you can't give yourself, apparently. You know what I'm saying? It's like feeding you an aeroplane now or a choo-choo train. You're a child.
Trini.
Well,
go ahead, Ronnie. Go ahead.
I was just going to make the point. The reason that you don't see them flying out is because a lot of them are a bit older. They have nothing to lose. Why would they leave? But look at their families. Their children do not live here.
Exactly.
Their grandchildren do not live here. They essentially are flying out their generations. They do not care about what happened here. If it burn, they will sit here and smile and tell you it's not burning. They do not care. Everything that they put their investment in is out of the country.
And that's why, listen, and it sounds controversial sometimes to people that haven't put some thought in it, but that's why some places would prefer monarchies. So you're looking at Iran. Iran is trying to, Iran seems like they may have a revolution at some point, who knows. And a lot of people in that, they're asking for a return of their Shah. They're asking for a return basically to monarchy. But here's the thing with a monarchy. If your son or daughter is the next ruler, then it is to your selfish benefit that this place continues in perpetuity to be a good place.
Correct.
While in the democratic system that we currently have, as some people pointed out, many of these people, their children don't live here. I have a serious problem with that. Like, I find it should be illegal for a politician to serve in office, and this one might be controversial, if they don't have children, one. If you don't have children, then what's your tie to the future?
Exactly.
Why do you care? And okay, you could say that you just care about humanity, but I don't believe you. I believe people with genetic tie to the future, they will have something to lose in that way. That's how humanity has generally always functioned. One. And two, if that genetic tie, if their children aren't residents here, those two things should, like, even if you're not a citizen, I will take a Venezuelan running for politics in Trinidad if their children are Trinidadians. I'll take that easier than a Trinidadian running for politics in Trinidad, but their children aren't Trinidadians. You have no vested interest in the future of this place.
Something that have always baffled me, and even from a young boy growing up, early secondary school, why are people over the age of 16, well into the 70s, making decisions for a future that they won't feel the effect of? And one of the biggest problems I have with Parliament and parliamentarians, why are they making decisions that are not going to affect them effectively? Because we're talking about health ministers accessing healthcare outside of the country, education ministers having their children educated outside of the country, ministers of works and transport having property and whatnot outside of the country. So it can never be balanced. They're making decisions for the consequences of which they will never endure.
Here's the thing. In the ideal of that, I understand it. In the ideal of that, a 60-year-old man, ideally, is supposed to be a man whose entire legacy is tied to this country. And at the age he is at now, he's able to have more of a bird's eye view of how his legacy is going to turn out. It's like asking, do you think someone's grandfather would make a better decision for them, or the person themselves would make a better decision? And generally speaking, you would assume an intelligent grandfather will make way better of a decision than the grandson would make, generally speaking, even on the grandson's behalf. And that's the hope that you're hoping for. But as I said, that's tied to if this old person's legacy is tied to the country also. So, like, I think the Queen of England, before she died, she looked like she was really working to the benefit of hers. I think she indeed was, because she was tied to it.
I think as a nation, we're way too lax into how we, and probably that's the way the Constitution set up. I can imagine. We're too lax into how people enter into governance. Like, for instance, simple example, I was looking at it yesterday. We have persons in the Senate, which should be the upper house of Parliament. But we have persons appointed in the Senate who were rejected in the lower house. So you can't tell me the population did not vote for somebody. They essentially lost the seat, but they still can be appointed in the upper house of the same Parliament. They were trying to get in. So we went too lax into who we allow into the...
That's too different. You see, here's the thing, right? It works similar in America as well. Nobody votes for senators. No regular citizen votes for senators, right? It just is what it is.
The idea of senators.
Yeah, the idea is that, you know, we make sure that one could hold each other accountable. It just is what it is.
And I think in many countries, including in the US, because the US changed their voting for senators, so now they actually do have more direct democracy for their senators. But the original idea was not to vote for them, because again, many of these things, the criticism sometimes comes without understanding the history of it. The idea of the senators comes from the Council of Elders. The idea here being that, yes, we have a dynamic team of rabble-rousers who are willing to drastically run towards change that might be needed, and we vote for them in the lower house, and they argue about this, and it's dramatic at that end. But because the reality of life is there are much more ways to die than there are to live, there are more ways to make the thing fail than there are to make it successful. When you see something going well well, it's not by mistake, it's not by magic, it's by repeated, continual thinking actions. So the idea is we don't just want someone to jump up and decide, you know what we're going to do? We're going to increase the minimum wage to $150. Yeah, that is a good idea. Everybody go be rich. And they pass that through the lower house and it's law now. No. We want a council of elders.
I agree. Well, let me just clear up the angle I was going at. It was like, okay, we have the parliament, the seat of democracy, right? That's the seat of democracy. So I understand the difference between the Senate being the upper house and the lower house being the House of Representatives. What I'm saying is it you as a political party or a political entity, are you so detached from what's really going on, what's really taking place, the wood on the ground, the average man? And if it is I don't trust somebody to even enter to make the suggestion, let's make minimum wage something that happen. I'm just thinking forward.
How could I put them then in the Senate?
How could I put them then to hold those same people accountable?
Let me show you an example of how. So, if I am UNC and I want to put someone up for election in Laventille, in Port of Spain East, I understand that because of the country dynamics, racial, ethnic dynamics, political history, my person isn't going to win there. However, that doesn't mean that the person isn't somebody worthy of a position. That doesn't mean that the person may not even very well be somebody that holds great sway in their community. It's just the nature of the political landscape in Trinidad and Tobago. They won't win in that constituency. So maybe, seeing who that person is and the representation they have, I would like to put them in a position where they could look over things without necessarily having to answer to the populist view. And this idea that Vox Populi, Vox Dei, that's a lie. The voice of the people is the voice of God. That's a lie. That has never been true. That has never been the case. So the idea that only a democratically elected person is going to make a good decision isn't necessarily the case. The aim here, or the hope, and I'm not saying this is how it happens, because it doesn't. It does not actually work like this. But the hope here was supposed to be a council of elders styled, where it's not that they have to go and campaign for people's votes, because a politician that needs to campaign for votes creates a different kind of creature automatically. That's not a regular human anymore. They're a different kind of politician. But this person doesn't have to campaign for votes. They're here to make good decisions. And supposedly, they are picked from places in the society where they hold respect. So the reason they're doing this is for the honor and respect of the position. And that's why they're there, and they make those... And even on top of that, we have another unelected person, the president, who is supposed to be the king, as it were, of all of those people of high honor, so that even after all of this, we still have somebody to look over and say, maybe not. It's stopgap measures.
Agreed. And that could have been true if it wasn't just one tranche of political minds just going up the ladder. It's never about independently selected person saying, hey, this person is above board, this person ain't really that politically. But there will always be room for bias when you see the person who was once a government minister end up the head of the Senate, end up the president, then in the position where they're going to appoint persons who refer to as independent senator. And I would agree to some strange degree with the government when they speak about, I don't agree with the bashing of them. I agree to in some small degree when they say a president that we have now, given the context of who the person is, given the context of the political career, they're making a choice on someone who is independent, that kind of difficult to swallow in most societies.
But that has always been how it has been.
And that's the problem.
The idea is...
Therein lies the problem.
Here's the thing though, Keys. Ronnie, you're next, don't worry. Here's the thing. How do we get independent people? What's the magical way to get independent people? Nearly everyone in the country I feel basically everyone in the country, if pressed hard enough, would generally come down on one side or the other, because it's a binary choice by and large. They would choose one or the other if forced to choose. So is anyone independent in that sense? This has always been the method that the country has attempted to use to show this independence, and you are playing the game. It's not like you are outside criticizing this and saying this is a horrible method to run. You've been in there. You're utilizing the thing. Here's my question. I want to know, when it's UNC's turn to choose a president, are they going to buck the whole system and say, we refuse to choose a politically biased head of state? We have complained about this, so we are going to show that we mean what we say. We will not put a person in this position because we say it's a politically partisan position. No, they won't do that. So it's not actually a complaint about independence. It's a complaint about not being able to force your will through. And that is the purpose of those offices. The purpose of those offices is so that populist government that just happens to get in power on the swing of popular vote doesn't come in and make drastic changes to the country that we then regret later on. No, they have to hold on and wait and discuss and convince people who they can't convince. So it doesn't just happen like that. That's why it's there. I am glad the senators aren't just de facto UNC senators. Otherwise, this also bill might have been passed since the day after election. And we wouldn't have even known. We don't even know all the details of the Zoso bill because they don't need to tell us. Yeah, Ronnie, what were you going to say?
Right, I was going to bring up the point of this is not, well, it's not like UNC has never appointed a president. They have in the past. And in all the years, this is just my opinion, I don't know if anybody can point out where anybody has ever disrespected a president in such a manner. That's insane. Even if you do not appreciate the person, you should always respect the office. Right? That's just my opinion on that. She crazy in my opinion for that. That's how you can speak so about the woman.
And here's the thing. Here's what that does, and I said this last night or night before. What that does is, and you regularly hear people in the society talk about that, you're destroying the trust in the institutions. And that's not just a cliche. This whole thing that we do is a make-believe game, you know.
Oh, God, yes, it is.
When
It is.
Justice Frank stands up in his robe and pontificates 2 pages of rulings, somebody could just hawk and spit and walk out of the building, you know. It's that everybody in the country trusts that this entire thing makes sense. And that's why it makes sense. The only way it functions, the only reason Mrs. Prasad Bisesa could guff her chest up there is because enough people in the society trust that this actually makes sense, so we're continuing to ascribe this authority to her. If all that trust is eroded, none of it makes any sense and none of it works. That's what happens in some failed states like Haiti, like Somalia. Some of those countries, there is no trust in any of the institutions. So even if you hold somebody and carry them to court and a judge pounds his gavel and says this person is sentenced to life in prison for X reason, the reality is you're trying to escape, because that the only time that holds sway is if they could catch you, because there's no trust in the system. You don't want to destroy the trust in the system, and that's what I'm saying. These people are using the system but attempting to destroy the trust in the system in the areas where it doesn't benefit them. I think that's a reckless and dangerous thing to do, and unwise also.
But I wasn't finished, eh?
Sorry.
Just to make it even worse, when the first opportunity given to UNC to appoint a temporary president, who did they go for?
Wade?
Right. Is he not he is more than politically anything. He was than Mr. Tabakit. Right? So So let's not pretend like, oh, well, I this and that, and I agree with the government on this, because given the chance, they will not change it. They could have constitutional reform, and they will not do it. They have the ability to do a lot of things because they have the majority, and they will not do it because it benefits them. The thing that they want to get rid of, they have won in this game that we have here. They have won with the rules set. Why would they change it? They will never change it. Everybody just come, and when they're in opposition, they know all of a sudden we need constitutional reform, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. They always know it in opposition. But from the time you win, you realize, well, wait, I could win playing these rules. I don't want to change the rules anymore.
Correct.
So everybody, we really, it doesn't even make sense. People talk big about how change and this and that and it doesn't happen. And given two options, you just have to choose. Unfortunate as it may seem. I mean, yes, we want to say, oh, give third parties a choice. When we have a viable third option, then we will go there. I like Michaela Pandey. However, I think that she has some growing to do. And that's fair. I've said it many of times. I've said it to her as well. I've said it to many people who have the small parties and they're coming up. I don't know if you all remember. I had a fella named, it's not Nekosi, Nekosi is the one in Tobago. His name was also Nekosi, I think.
Yeah.
He was from South.
Yeah.
He was from South.
Yeah.
And I spoke with him before. He ran in like 1 or 2 elections. I can't remember. I spoke to him before. And I had the opportunity to speak to him like 2 years ago. And I asked him about the politics. He was like, I done with this politics thing. You understand? So even our viable, quote unquote, viable third options, they don't stick it out long enough. They can't. Michaela Pandey is not ever going to be the one to run this country. She's not going to be the one. But if she builds her party properly, we might see a patriotic front government one day. But she will not be the prime minister. That's just the truth.
Rooney, I would sell my arm and foot tomorrow to see a third party run this country. I'm dead serious. I ain't even lying to you. And I go vote with my right hand.
Next one?
You know what I'm saying? In my next one now. You know, because here's what I'm saying. There has been a long time in the history of Trinidad and Tobago where we had a third party came and decimate the landscape and actually win an election. And I agree with you, Rooney. I agree with you because it's just, I think the other political parties in this country are just so, how to put it, by lackadaisical. It's a laziness to just stick it out. You understand what I'm saying? They rather partner or merge into another party. Ridiculousness in my view. And we could jump across to Tobago and see that it's very much viable at that point. We are seeing Tobago blue like it's never been before.
Well, this is the thing.
Right.
And you can't make that, we could never compare Trinidad and Tobago politics. It's quite different.
I mean, fair enough. What I'm stating is that it's it's possible now, boy.
Not really, because it's always PNM versus another party. It is never PNM versus our next party and then our next party come and take it. It's
you mean it's
always
PNM
two
country, man?
parties.
It's PNM country.
I think my hope for the third party isn't necessarily coming in and taking it all. My hope for the third party is quote unquote as a spoiler. And in involving third party as a spoiler happens, you look in Europe and where our parliamentary system, the general kind of parliamentary system we have is more done. And you see often that's a possibility where smaller parties come in and they could win 1 seat or 2 seats or 3 seats. And what that causes is the way how alliances have to be made. It's more difficult for the old main parties to just run roughshod over everything. I was looking at the discussion between Otis and Trini there in the comments, and Otis was asking if you think we'd get a better trial from our overlords. And why is that a hard thing to see, Otis? If looking at the current government we have right now, if it was possible for them to basically say who is in the Supreme Court, they appoint our Supreme Court, our highest court of this country. do you think you'd get a better ruling from a locally politically appointed court than from the Privy Council? There's a reason the Privy Council still stands. And the point I make so often, especially when relating to multicultural countries, especially, the problem in multicultural countries is it's difficult to build up a high trust society.
But even very early in our politics, and Nathan, you probably will have more information on this. Even early in Dr. Eric Williams' days, when they had this big commission and this big paper lead into what would be the best suited system of government in Trinidad and Tobago, and they actually did come back. I remember the name of the report. They did say it was proportional representation, and it was shelved. But because it would not have been in the interest of the current seated government. So we have government just coming in and out and playing this game and pretending that the system doesn't work because it doesn't, and convincing us that they also believe the system doesn't work, but they use it to their advantage. But if they really fix the system of government into a proportional representation, where everybody, no matter how small a party is, they have some portion of decision-making access, I should say, in the parliament at Trinidad and Tobago, but it will never change because it haven't.
Exactly.
Very, very early in our politics, they said that.
Why would I, if I'm benefiting from the current system, why would I change it?
That's for one, but it's like, you see, where we pull our governmental system from, their culture is just vastly different now. like how they echo that whole political landscape vastly different, and all across Europe, right, where you tend to get, a quote-unquote multi-party system out of this thing now. It's just a different culture how they go about this thing, right? And that's just how it is, and we can't for sure see it within a Trinidad and Tobago context that a multi-party system is just a hard thing to kind of get here. You know what I'm saying? It's just too ingrained. And here's what I'm saying, right? I'm not against a Supreme Court in Trinidad and Tobago. It just is what it is in the current, zeitgeist of what this country is. Having a Supreme Court just doesn't kind of make sense at this present moment. Even if I want it, you know what I'm saying? It just is what it is.
I am against a Supreme Court in this country. I am against anybody. I'm sorry, not a, of course I'm against a Supreme Court in this country. Have we forgotten who we are in this country?
Nah, that's like saying America shouldn't have a Supreme Court because of their multiculturalism.
I'm not talking about multiculturalism. I'm not talking about multiculturalism.
But here's the difference though, Trini. You were just highlighting that our histories aren't the same. The United States, though a multicultural country now, has a dominant culture. The Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture is what formed the United States. Fact. Many people like to try to add whatever. That's not true. There's a fact to that. So, there is a dominant culture that they could tie themselves to and run themselves by. What is the dominant culture in Trinidad and Tobago? Pray tell.
Okay, now I wanted to clarify my point about the Privy Council and the CCG.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the real issue. We have to remember that the whole purpose that the CCG was established is because both Keith Sobian and Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj violated the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago when they executed men that were on death row who had their matters pending before the Privy Council. Right? You all would well be aware of the fact that because England has abolished the death penalty, we here in Trinidad and Tobago, because we use the Privy Council as our highest court of appeal, have a very difficult time executing criminals,
Correct.
convicted murderers on the death row. Now, that was the whole purpose of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Now, when individuals are seen, because I spoke to both Faisal Wari about this, and I spoke to Adel Roberts. And this is when Faisal Wari was the Attorney General, because I asked him, what was happening? And he basically said it's because the UNC didn't want to support using the CCG. Likewise, when I asked Adel Roberts, he gave the same response Trinity. Now, if you are telling me we cannot expect to get fair or impartial treatment from our local judges or judges in the Caribbean who would be selected to serve on the CCG, what is the purpose of us having a judicial system? If you're telling me you don't believe our judges are people of integrity, that they cannot make decisions based on evidence, what is the purpose?
We just only hire assistant coaches here. The head coach had to come from foreign.
Correct. Correct. That is literally it.
And that is why I say, let me do the same with the independent senators. Don't tell me I'm crazy. Let me bring people from outside to serve as independent senators.
Oh, listen, I don't mind some of that, I don't mind some of that. I'm not saying that's a crazy idea. I don't mind some of that. But with the CCJ, I remember we discussed this. I understand the worry about it, because I would have worry about it too. And then, let's be fully honest about it. When you do it as a Caribbean-wide thing, bear in mind, where is the political division in Trinidad and Tobago? On the racial border, the racial and ethnic border. But what is the racial and ethnic makeup of the entire Caribbean? So if I am a UNC supporter in Trinidad and Tobago, and I already feel like the division here in politics is race-based, why would I be interested in now putting myself in a pool that puts my ethnicity at even a more minority status for my senior court? While I could go to England, where my ethnic base of India also has some home in the Commonwealth. These things, if you're willing to be honest about the racial demographics and racial anthropology of Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of these things are pretty clear to understand why.
I got where you're coming from, but the reality is, the reason they don't want to move away from the Privy Council is because of the money. Most of our politicians are lawyers. They have family members who are lawyers. They have friends who are lawyers. They have ties to law firms. And they make a lot of money when they have to go to the Privy Council to represent any matter.
I don't buy that. I honestly, I don't buy that it's just the money.
Nathan, that is why the UNC can argue that the PNM spend $1 billion in 10 years, in 9 years in court matters, and the PNM can argue UNC spent $2 billion in 5 years. $1 billion in 5 years. So $2 billion in 15 years paying lawyers legal fees, most of them to handle matters before the Privy Council. Because when matters go to the Privy Council, these senior counsels get paid equivalent to what they would earn as a senior counsel in England.
In that jurisdiction, yeah. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So take for example somebody like Israel Khan. If he goes to represent Trinidad and Tobago, the state of Trinidad and Tobago before the Privy Council, he earns equivalent to what a senior counsel in England would earn. Maybe $2,000 to £3,000 per hour.
Plus books.
Exactly. And this is what it's really about. And that is why I said, if most of our politicians actually had a degree, some kind of bachelor's degree or master's degree in political science, and they really focus on politics, you would see a whole different situation.
That would
I find that to be the most ridiculous of suggestions, because in any place, any country that goes down the technocratic line, it gets worse. It gets demonstrably worse. That technocratic line is the guys in Davos right now in the WEF summit. That's their kind of line. That technocratic line is how you end up with billions of dead bodies. I am not going down that line that somehow somebody goes to school for 4 years and that gives them the idea of how to run this thing. The problem with these people isn't that they're uneducated. You just said that the reason they're doing this is money. You can't educate greed out of people. You're not going to educate them in political sciences and then they're going to forget that they want to make money. That's not going to happen.
By the way, Roddy, that is my son. That's acting up. You know, the what stuff is now what I'm looking.
Okay, cool. I was just hearing your song then wait. I understand.
But yeah, first off, I don't doubt that money has a part to play. I wouldn't doubt that at all. However, the fact that it is drawn on partisan lines, there's more than just a money reason why UNC supporters would generally be in the team of their party not choosing the CCG.
I mean, just think about it, right? Last year, the Prime Minister made a statement when she said, we're going to resume hangings. And in the same breath, she said, we can't legally hang anybody. How foolish is that?
It's politics.
It's about being popular, man. It's just about being popular.
And the reason it is foolish is because we don't want to use the CCG. And that's the whole purpose the CCG was established for.
And you think if Kamala had a political science degree, she would have known that and she doesn't know it now?
She's well aware.
But they still do hire in political scientists as advisors, huh?
Some of them, but I know political scientists and I've listened to many political scientists, and the most foolish politics I've heard comes from the political scientists. You see, especially those soft sciences where there aren't many ways to test the accuracy and be rigorous about the scientific method when it comes to them. I don't trust it. Most of it is a way to get people with wealthy parents for them to get a nice, easy job. Lots of these things are quack sciences. Lots of them are quack sciences. Political science.
They just carry the degree to enforce the opinion, you know.
Yeah. It's an opinion game, and they tag a degree on it. Tell me, how could there be political scientists who are Marxists?
Crazy.
How? And they're so intelligent and educated, but they're Marxist political science, you know. Marxism doesn't work mathematically, but somehow a scientist ends up a Marxist. And I think if you go through the political science faculties around the Western world, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of them might lean towards Marxism. And they're scientists.
I think one of the major problems we face here as a society is that we have not yet nationalized ourselves. We don't have an ounce of patriotism save and accept a football match or a World Cup qualifier. We yet to realize that the ethnic lines that we use to divide ourselves here, we just dividing nothing into nothing. Because everybody wants to claim motherland this and motherland that, and not realizing that we are totally different society from even these motherlands in which we claim. And in the same breath, we still realizing that we're not fit to govern ourselves. Hence, these are the stopgap measures. Well, not ourselves. The government don't believe the opposition but act fair enough, so we leave in this stopgap measure. The opposition don't believe that the government will act fair enough, so we leave in this stopgap measure. We have not yet believed as a people that we could govern ourselves. And it is glaring. It is glaring.
Here's a problem, and this is the issue I see. Go ahead, Black Panther. Go ahead, Black Panther. You've been here, one.
People really think we unfit to govern ourselves.
Oh, brother.
Or we just hold up, Trini. That's not. People really think we're unfit to govern ourselves? Really? That is the problem we have with Trinidad and Tobago?
To some degree, yes.
Really?
To some degree, yes.
We don't trust ourselves.
Bruv, do you know we hold on to very
Just now, bro. Just now.
Right.
We are a society that does not trust ourselves.
We governing ourselves for what? 60 plus years now?
We are involved in
Under
acts of governing.
Under the same style of governance that was given to us by the colonial people, the same people we wanted to get away from.
Wait, Black Panther, why your voice sounding so familiar?
Right?
Bruv, that's our tool, bruv. It's our tool, bruv. It's our tool, bruv.
They done blacklisted murder profile. I can't post and all kind of canals, whatever.
Everybody. You okay?
I hear and I pause and I like, wait. The ring of this revolution in the voice is sounding very familiar.
I realized was Abdul when he said that 60 years democracy wasn't working and this was like that was Abdul.
No, what I'm saying is this. Let me be realistic, right? We spinning top in mud in something that was handed to us by the same colonial masters we wanted to get away from. The same people we wanted to get away from, say, oh, let's govern, let's help by this pattern. But it didn't work really and truly. It didn't work if you're being realistic.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Because the type of resources financially and when it comes to the citizenry we have in the country and where is the state of the nation right now?
But Mr. Black Panther, you're nearly sounding like if you're in agreement with what Trini is saying there then, that we are not capable of self-governing. And here's the caveat I would add to that.
I wouldn't say that.
I would, and here's why. Let's not just play it controversial without the caveat. It's not just that black and brown people retarded. I hope that ain't...
That's not the case.
It's not that, but part of it is the nature of the systems that we were left, just like Africa. Africa is the prime example. I like reading lots of African history. It's very interesting and I think it's very informative and it helps to clear your mind of some of the foolishness that could be taught to you by some of the victim lovers on this side. A lot of Africa's problem isn't just that the colonial powers are advantaging them. You have to ask, why can the colonial powers advantage them? And to some extent, some of these African countries are tribes from the Stone Age attempting to represent themselves as countries from the modern age.
Cockroach and Foul Party.
And what I think to some extent needed to happen was a natural progression from the tribe itself.
Yes, I.
But when you grab 50 different tribes, slam them together, call them a country and tell them they have to live 2,000 years in the future from where their natural progress point is, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, because look at a simple thing, and I don't mean to cut you across, so I just want this thought to flee me. A simple thing on the way our constitution is made up, we have a defense force. Is our defense force really equipped? And not even only the defense force, other little institutions we have of governance that was a prerequisite for independence. It's like we just say, okay, no problem, we'll do this because we'll get independence, because we can get the job now. I don't want to govern again, I want to be able to be selected in a parliament, I want to be able to be prime minister, so okay, we're going to do all you say we will do to get independence, so we will do it. And never really put in work into getting it done. We just slam some things together and say, okay, right, we have a court system. Right, we have a means to protect ourselves. Right, we have a means to administer justice. And that's what happened. We just rush into everything without even understanding. Because again, everybody wants a personal piece of the pie. And
those systems were borrowed systems, as Black Panther was pointing out there. Those systems were borrowed from the colonial masters. Very few of those systems were indigenously crafted to suit our purposes. So for people who find themselves now being part of the Western culture and tradition, then these systems make sense. you fully sell yourself to this, you're now a Westerner, you're very likely a Christian, you speak English, that's the way you think and see the world. Now, this makes sense to you and you can function in the system. But if you don't fully go that direction, it's going to be very difficult to get those systems to function the way you want it to function. They aren't engineered for the kind of way your culture lives. One of the problems in Africa, I've been following a lot of this recently, and people talk about the corruption. And a point that some people make is it's not that the people are more innately corrupt, but because again it's a tribal system with this modern thing overlaid on it, the people still think tribally. I am looking for my benefit for my tribe, so of course I'm going to be corrupt because it's my benefit for my tribe.
Yes.
You take people like that, put them even inside of the Western system in Minnesota, and of course they're going to rob you $19 billion and send it out of your country because they're tribal. You think you're putting free food out there, and the people who are really needy, they're just going to take what they need and leave it. That's your culture. My culture is tribal. If we see free food, we collect all of it and store it for our tribe. I don't consider that a wicked thing because that's how our tribe functions.
Nathan, what we need?
You know,
Nathan, what is needed to govern Trinidad and Tobago into prosperity and proper progress? What is needed?
one of two things. Something to homogenize the culture. So one religion across the entire thing, however you're doing that. Or authoritarianism. Someone that forces that over everyone, like a colonial power.
Or subcontract the country, hire a firm to run the affairs.
That's authoritarianism.
That's authority. Yes.
That's authoritarianism. And you know it would work. Because many colonies, where everybody in the colony hate the colonial master, sometimes have the lowest crime level because it's authoritarian.
I think any of our politicians right now who stand up to represent this country and flying out to go this meeting and that meeting and this conference and that conference should feel sick and embarrassed. That's how they should be feeling. Because
Why? Am I bread butter on both sides?
in the words of Donald Trump, country's a shithole compared to where we're supposed to be.
Well, like the words of Kamala.
Compared to where we're supposed to be for the billions, maybe trillions of dollars in revenue, where we are supposed to be, and where we are right now, they should be embarrassed and ashamed.
Disagree.
They should be.
I would like to speak after. Go on, Aboud. Finish.
Right. So, unless Trinidadians ready to accept the truth and see that this 5 years, slack in, slack out thing ain't working, it ain't working, right? We just spinning top in mud. The politicians do not fear getting voted out of office. They don't care. They don't care if they get voted out of office because it doesn't make the millions.
Agreed.
And then
That's incorrect.
Agreed.
now they know they're coming back. That's why they do.
That is the whole thing.
Correct. Thank you.
That is the whole thing. So what is there? What it have in place there? If they don't fear consequences of doing nonsense in office, what it have in place there to make them do what they're supposed to do?
Well, I'm the population and they might fear.
Let Ronnie go. I want to talk to
anything. I would like to continuously remind Trinidadians, Trinidadians of all the freeness that we have enjoyed over the years. Stop saying we had so much money and we have nothing to show for it. Right? The reason we have brain drain is because we educated our population. So much so that they cannot find jobs enough. Right? We gave free healthcare, we gave a lot of social programs that never cut. Stop saying that we did nothing with our money.
These things are necessarily free, eh?
Well, they're not free to us. It's free to the people, but it's not free to the country. It came from all the oil booms that we got. That is what we did with our money. We did not invest it. We made sure that people was living nice. People who never work could get a pension. That is what we did with our money.
You see that, Ronnie?
So,
You see that, Ronnie?
so,
What you're saying there, it annoys me about many people. The way many people attempt to extricate the population from the politicians in the situation that we're in, as if the politicians did it all on their own. No. And up till this moment, the country still chooses politicians who promise to give them more of the country's resources, instead of politicians who promise to manage the resources better. Who could give me the most? To me, Tobago is the picture of that. Tobago is Inglewood. Whichever politician promises, I will take it all and give it to you, you get my vote.
Yeah, Tobago is a child in the politics, man.
And if that's the style of politics, and Tobago has it more blatant because they're a more homogenized culture, so you could see it more blatantly. But I think it's throughout the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago also. If we have that style of people, that's the style of politicians we're going to get. We're going to get politicians who promise to spend out all the money and give us good things, and they come in and spend out all the money, give us some good things, and then we're angry when the money is done. But that's what we wanted. We asked them to spend out all the money and give us. We still have the biggest union in this country with public sector workers who have no idea whether they're making a profit for the country or not. They don't know whether they're doing a positive thing for the country or not, because we don't know. And they're the ones that promise to give the country to the new government if the new government promised to give them more of the country money. That's what happened in our last election. Like, is it any surprise we're in the situation we're in? We can't just blame the politicians. That's a cultural thing. That's the culture we have. Wait, Ronnie, were you finished or I cut you?
a little, but just to end off, I really would like to ask, where does slack in, slack out all come from? Because I feel I don't know where it comes from.
Slack in, slack out.
Yeah, where that come from?
I do for 10 years, you do a 5 years. I
So
do
who
a
said
10
it
years,
first?
you do a 5 years.
I got a concept behind it, but who said it? Like, where did, like, where it come from?
I know that is a thing I was saying growing up, so I just paid it.
I've never heard that saying growing up.
No, I've heard it, like, especially in the last couple of months, I've been hearing people say
Yeah, that's a big saying. I think it started from, I can remember from, I think it's a football thing, you know. Small goal football, slacking out, they slacking the teams and they slack out the loser and that kind of thing. I would have adopted it from.
Thanks, I just wanted to know, you can continue if I have anything. But just now, wait, are we going to talk about Zoso tonight?
What about Zoso? And we talking about Zoso?
You're late.
Yeah, that we talking about.
I don't know
Like,
what
wait,
to
Richie?
talk about.
You're late.
No, I was talking about politics. I was, well, I mean, and
So the Zoso is not politics, Ronnie?
well, I wanted to talk about that in particular. Well, since we're already talking about it, then let me just end on this one.
We spoke about that earlier in the live.
Well, I don't know when I come home a little late.
Right.
Quickly, I think a lot of people, I don't know if I said it because I wasn't here, a lot of people would be in more support of these zoos or whatever if they could fix the policing around.
Yeah, Nathan pointed that out. Yeah, Nathan did point
Oh,
that out.
shucks. Well, okay. I guess I have nothing else to say, Nathan.
You never said nothing.
Well, basically, that's what I'm just going on. We do not trust the, just like I do not trust the country to say, well, I don't trust our justice system to say to have a Supreme Court in Trinidad and Tobago. That is just the highest court of Trinidad and Tobago is Trinidad and Tobago. I don't trust that. It's the same reason I don't trust police in Zoso's areas because it's just an abuse of power, and these same people, we can't trust them. They're very corrupt. How much judges on them just be taking bribe in this country? We cannot even say because I don't have court clothes like that. I'm not gonna go anywhere But I don't have that court closed. You understand? But we all know it. Everybody's been taking bribe in this country.
I don't take no bribe. So me know everybody.
Very soon, the roads are going to get worse, right? Police officers are now going to be taking you $1,000 for your seatbelt. So that $2,000, they're gonna say, well, what? You want the $2,000 or you gonna get my $1,000 in my pocket? You feel that thing where that come just now?
What you mean just now, Rooney? Like if it ain't already here.
I hope it doesn't come down
$500,
here.
so them gonna really take out $500. I could understand that $1,000. Me ain't paying my job on the line for the $500. But very soon, with the kind of prices you're looking at for a ticket, a police corporation tell you, well, here was like something. And just now that revenue drive they have, they will be useless because they ain't gonna get no revenue. Because I will give a policeman $1,000 instead of paying a $2,000 ticket.
You know what's interesting? As you say that, as I was going to lead to the fact that,
Yeah, man.
we act like babies, like, a baby always have to be fed and ask for more. Trinidad and Tobago citizens are really something else, and the audacity is ever glaring. We sat down and we ate from the pie of natural gas and oil and everything else, to the point where people are driving vessels and all sorts of nonsense on the road, right? And making content about Starbucks matches, right? To then talk about the government supposed to give me money to maintain such a lifestyle, right? What's interesting though is that now that the government is being a very iron fist government, and you all have allowed the politicians to run it down straight into the ground, you all vex now that they had to pull from you all to give to you all.
We vex.
It's like a baby. It's like a baby. When they give a baby a rattle, what I'm saying? Take back the rattle to give him back after like 2 hours later. Yes, it's like that, lah, boy. What I'm saying? It's basically that.
Except we're not getting back the rattle. They took the rattle and threw it in the sea. The rattle to get.
Well, no. But the issue is this, is that we don't see how we ever play a part into this, And you know what makes me understand that so well when I enter the ethos of Trini Twitter, of the government safe seats, of the PNM number. They well know how to speak about how the government is this and that today, but they are also playing a part in the fact that they vote. So, hey, listen, if you like it, I love it, I could eat from your hands same way we could eat from all of our hands, you know what I'm saying? When I get a $2,000 ticket, that will pay for my vessel as well. You know what I'm saying, in one way or the other. So, hey, what we gonna do, boy? We gonna borrow $1 billion from the US. So what we gonna do about that money, though?
We have been borrowing. We have been since 2006. We have been in a climbing deficit. If there is even a
What government
yeah, I understand. But not we should.
It's the magic of all of this nonsense. And this is how you know these governments are real foolishness. And I sure is men educated with political science degrees and things doing this foolishness. All governments in the world owing, Who we owing? The whole world owing. Who we owing?
A play of numbers.
How we borrow?
Numbers.
From who? Who we borrow from? Is all kind of Nancy story they hitting you in. Or we borrow from the future. How you borrow from the future?
Well, hopefully.
Give me a chance, give me a chance, but borrow from the future. They thief it, write it down in a book and say we go pay it back at some point in time, but they thief it. And the thing is, when we keep giving governments that authority, why would a government stop? Why would a government stop? Why would any government say that they're going to decrease the pay among public servants? Why would any government do that?
It is rumored. that the man who was in charge in the Red House in 1990 wanted to go our next direction,
Okay, my brother.
You know, he should have really sent the message in truth.
Nathan, you know what? You know
I
what
just
another
would
way you
like to-
could get? Nathan, you know what another way you could get what you want? We could also elect somebody like Javier Milei in Trinidad and Tobago, you know what I'm saying? Now we could elect the president of El Salvador. We could always go the democratic route with this, and we might like Javier Milei and his politics. I love it, you know. I love
But then
it.
they should love Kamala.
Here's the,
They should love
here's the thing, boy, Trini. Here's what I think. There's still a difference. I think Tobago could elect a Javier Milei. Trinidad cannot. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying.
I agree.
Argentina, El Salvador are way more homogeneous than Trinidad. So when the El Salvadoran, what's his name again? It always slips me. When homie decide that he's going to clamp down and start throwing people in jail from our side, if he throws in a set of people that look like him into the maximum security, they say, well, he's just cleaning up the country. But if indeed, because Israel Khan said that most of the gangs are African, yeah, Bukele. If that is true, let's say that is true. I'm not saying it is. He said 90-something% is African. If that's true, and you go on a campaign to clean up all the gangs, and you see they start to remove the rights of a 90% Afro population and throw them all in prison, how you think that's going to go over in Trinidad?
Yeah, we'll cry racialism.
Nathan,
Cry? Well, let's say you still gonna cry?
Nathan.
No, I don't think the crying will be the problem. I think violence will be the problem.
Exactly. We ain't gonna be crying at that point in time.
Well, most of them will be in jail.
No. You see, again, some people don't understand how things could get drastic. What is the majority makeup of the TTPS?
Afro.
What is the majority makeup of the TTR?
Afro.
So decent,
Yeah.
So you understand about most of them being in jail. Who putting them in jail?
No, that.
I'm just saying that the whole thing is a much more difficult thing to happen. In Tobago, that could happen. In Trinidad, it will be much more difficult. That's why I said it's either we homogenize religiously, so we're all fully Muslim by Black Panther, all fully Muslim, so that when we lock up all the bad people, it don't feel like we're discriminating as Muslim locking up the bad Muslims. Or we get an authoritarian who says, we don't care if it look like we're locking up 90% black people, we lock them up. We don't care. It's authoritarianism.
I would like to. Sorry, go ahead. I've been speaking all
question, right? And we are quote unquote Democratic Republic sovereign nation. Quote unquote Democratic Republic sovereign nation. Yet still you're telling me because international bodies and international alliances and agreements, I can go in my parliament and pass a law and say, well, here what's going on. Right? If my highest court of law say you guilty and the judge
Boss, you're true.
sentence you to this, we carrying out this.
Well, here's what, Black Panther. I think Mr. Orange Guy may actually be helping to create a world where such things are more possible. Because that's his ideology on countries. This international law thing, and I heard the Prime Minister of Canada came out and said it. All of a sudden, when the US started to bully all you suddenly recognize, well, the international law was never a real thing. It was always a fiction. Oh, you now recognize it was always a fiction.
Realize that.
Because
Don't realize that.
it was always a fiction. We knew it was always a fiction because it was always he who have more corn feed more fowl, as the old people say. It has always been that's the case. And why should it be just as you're saying Black Panther? We signed some weirdo agreement with some Europeans who have nothing to do with our culture, nothing to do with what we face, and we can't make our own laws to govern ourselves based on what they say. That's rubbish. And I think some of those things would be going in that direction. The international law business is already on its back. International law, what?
For all who trust international law, just know the current president of Syria had a bounty for 10 million from the same US government. He was a wanted terrorist, quote unquote IS, Al Qaeda. Now he's shaking hands with the United States president.
And Putin had a bounty on his head tops.
No, Putin was never designated a terrorist.
No, I never say he was designated a terror.
This guy, I showing you how international law whimsical.
Bro.
It's all about the power.
Yeah, so
I was having a conversation on Twitter at one point in time, and I let down the path of letting the person know that international law is just it's only bound by if people care and agree to it, you know? Because when push comes to shove and China want to play fussy with Taiwan, international law don't give a damn. It's my country, right? Right? So regardless of if China is in the UN or not, Taiwan is their own by their own right to claim it and conquer it now, boy.
Might, international law is might. That is what international law is. And that's what Trump has called out Europe on now, where they're talking about international law and international law and international law. But the only people that were paying to fund this was the United States. So then if we're paying to fund this, we could say what go on here, what we want Greenland now. But no, it's against international law. We are the international law. Who is going to stop us? You're going to ask, please? Of course not. The ICC has no power. Of course they have no power because they have no enforcement arm. The only time laws make sense is if there's law enforcement. Who is the law enforcer? In this case, the United States has shown that they're willing to enforce what they consider the law. So when they say this is the law, it becomes the law because they can enforce it. They say Maduro is a narco-terrorist wanted for drug crimes in New York because they could go in and arrest him and carry him in handcuffs into New York. All of a sudden that becomes actually the law. You know, indeed, he is a narco-terrorist wanted for crimes in New York just because they could do it.
So by that same notion, right, when they went and snatched each the arms dealer in Barbados, that was all well and good. They were just flexing the power.
What came of it? That's how we see. Is anyone in prison for kidnapping him? So then, indeed, what they did wasn't anything wrong with it because no one is in prison for it.
The person who kidnapped him actually got promoted.
Yes.
The person who allegedly let me throw in allegedly there. The person who allegedly kidnapped him bounced down a baby boy on the bus route and still free and promoted. It seemed like that kidnapping gave that person a barrier of invincibility.
I'm gonna go down that route. But Nathan, the whole premise, I think, when people talk about the international law, I mean, America versus everybody now, is that the premise is that the whole world would train their guns on America now, and they will all fight America and take down America. I don't think people quite understand that's not how the world operates. Like, the world don't operate like that now, boy. Like, everybody have their own priorities and their own agendas now, boy. Every country, now, yes, some countries might not like America and what they do, and the technicalities behind it. But every country in the world isn't going to train their guns against America to fight them and take them down as the empire of the world. That's not how it works.
And here's the strategy of a businessman. He is attempting to only do bilateral agreements, as in he has an agreement with Trinidad and Tobago, he has an agreement with Grenada, he has an agreement with Barbados, he has an agreement with Guyana. They're all independent of each other. So CARICOM as a body becomes much less important in us having solidarity with each other. It might make more sense we betray each other, because in betraying each other we may actually get a better deal.
Correct.
So all of a sudden, yeah, let me work to take down the US, and everybody's saying that, but somebody, when you hear it, they announce they already have a deal with the US for some kind of trade agreement, and now you have to pause and think to yourself, wait. I thought we were all in this together. Right now, I have tariffs that my country bossing, but your country's no. Well, I betraying you now, and that's the position. So they were, and you know what annoys me sometimes? It's so funny, but it's annoying sometimes. Orange guy wrote a book, a literal book, on his strategy in negotiation. He outlined it clearly in the book how he negotiates. He does it every single time. And every single time they fall for it. The big ask, I want Greenland, we're willing to drop the military there to take it, and the whole world in uproar. Oh no, my God, what do you... And then dial back, and now they settle to basically give him everything he wants in Greenland. And they're like, oh my gosh, how did he do it again? Because you all keep falling for the same okie doke every time.
But Nathan, like, listen, each country government, everybody fights in this big economical war to their own benefit. The United States is becoming a natural target because the United States has a financial monopoly on the world right now. So the more these countries say here, well, you kind of want to slack off a little bit with how much strings you're pulling. The more the United States watching it as a threat to their supremacy. This is all that is taking place globally right now. That is the basis of it.
But there's a repositioning happening, and like for what you know also, you would be able to see some of that. The US is repositioning itself in the Middle East. So they're now aiming to come pro-Qatar, pro-Saudi, and attempt to weave all of them into a deal with the Israelis and cut off Iran. So there's the Saudis, someone in that deal with the Abraham Accords, they were saying they're attempting now to change it from the Abraham Accords to the Abraham Alliance. And the aim of that is to have a different focal point there in the Middle East, a different focal point now in Venezuela, so they don't have that beacon of left-wing politics right on their borders. There is a bit of a realignment happening. So yes, it seems like Europe is turning away more from the United States, but it also seems like the United States is attempting to reposition itself. And to some extent, it may seem like it may be more profitable for the United States to reposition itself away from Europe and more to just the profitable countries. That looks like what they're aiming at. They're looking at profit more than just who we were friends with for a long time.
Listen, plenty of them leaders don't really have a choice.
Of course they do.
Especially the ones in the Middle East, because at the end of the day, if they don't have US backing, they don't know how long they'll be breathing.
Well, that's the stick part with the carrot and the stick. There's a carrot and there's a stick. So you could do what we want and make a lot of money. But what happens if I don't do what you want? Let's not discuss that. Remember, there was a president of Venezuela named Maduro, but let's not discuss that anymore. You understand? It's a carrot and a stick. A lot of Africa countries turned away from Europe. Yeah, a lot of Africa did that. But my hope for Africa isn't all that high until Africa can sort out its own tribal problems. The thought that somehow a magical leader is going to take control of an African country and make it into Wakanda is just not going to happen.
And Burkina Faso coup d'etat leader is doing that. Come on, everybody have high hopes for that guy. He's just going to turn the whole of the Sahel into a bountiful place, apparently.
At least he's making an attempt. At least he's making an attempt. At least.
Bro, you know how much leaders have made an attempt? Bruv, Africa has known for making attempts.
Listen, my way of looking at that different to your way of looking at that.
No.
I don't believe in the keep your head low and somewhere 100 or 200 years down the road things will get better.
I'm not saying that
I don't take that route, right?
Oh, love that.
No,
My position, I believe, if a man see well here, if quote unquote, let's remember nobody not perfect, no human being is perfect. If a man decide, but I gonna make a move here, I willing to take the risk to make a move, a type of move.
No.
And where's the outcome is the outcome.
Here's
So
the thing,
I make you move.
I'm not against that, Abdul. I'm not talking about keep your head low for 200 years. I'm saying that in the history of Africa, which we have to literally see now, boy, is that attempts are always made, and then the attempts are futile because of the outcomes that are very apparent.
Because everybody have a price.
And the fact, not even that, it's just a matter of fact that my brother is taking probably the same turn his brethren have taken for thousands of years. There's nothing new in it. It's a cycle. There was a democratic president. He was ousted because he was corrupt by a military coup, of course, because there's no other coup that could do it. No force could do it but a military in Africa, of course. And then he becomes the leader of the country, has a transitional government. The transitional government goes nowhere because he doesn't want to leave power. So here comes the same cycle. Bruv, it's the same thing. It keeps happening.
Unless Africa unite, they can't go forward.
I am vice versa than that, in the keys. I am vice versa. After listening to many Africans, there are Africans making content more and more out there. I urge you go and listen to Africans. Find some sensible ones because there are some of them basically reproducing the same thing you hear from Westerners. But get some perspectives from inside Africa. Get some views from inside Africa. And get the understanding. To me, I think it's vice versa. It's not that Africa needs to unite. Africa needs to divide because it's falsely united presently. It needs to divide and then unite on its own terms.
I get you. And I agree. I get you.
Unite on its own terms. Because right now, it's united on European terms. Listen, those European countries fought each other for millennia before they even ended up with the tentative agreement they have now with the European Union, you know. World War I and World War II were those guys, you know. Blue-eyed people shooting blue-eyed people, you know. So it's not just a strange African thing. It's something that is human that has to sort out over time.
Exactly. I mean, again, we dealing with human nature. Nobody not perfect. Everybody gonna have the goon squad here. This one talking that in the corner there, let me make disappear them. Cool. Psh. Listen to what I'm saying. Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, where's the next one? Young leaders who decide here what? We go down to the colonialist summer position. Let me see if we could do some improvements. What they're doing right now, in reality, they need to have the goon squads. We hope the goon squads in, the timing. Let be real. Let us be real. Let us be realistic. They need to have the goon squads. They have to have the goon squads. Whether all the information coming out is, and all the information can't be propaganda. 100% of the information could never be propaganda.
Well,
We just don't know what is fact from what is
I
fiction.
find that hysterical
We just don't know.
because we are not saying this for the Israel-Palestine conflict. We are saying everything is propaganda when it comes to this Israel-Palestine conflict. We ain't saying, well, it could possibly be everything.
My position 100% clear on that conflict.
I I know your position clear on that. Your position clear as the must on the highway to Chagonas. That's how clear your position is. Right there, brother. We get that. We don't dispute that. My problem is this here, is that the same thing that's happening in Sudan currently might happen in Burkina Faso. Because Sudan is fighting a civil war with their own people, by the way. One side is backed by probably America and Europe, and the next side is backed by Russia.
But side backed by the UAE.
But Black Panther, here's the difficulty with what happened in Burkina Faso, and why I say that I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for, and I kind of in agreement with Trini that it's just part of the regular cycle. If the person they deposed was democratically elected, that means that person had at least a plurality of support within the country. Knowing how African countries go, that very likely is a tribal support. Is it that they depose the favored leadership of this tribal group and the tribal group is all comfortable with it now? Or just now, one, and two, do you think they're treating the tribal group that they deposed very kindly right now? And do you suppose that that would have zero effect on how stable this place could be moving forward?
All the conflict we hear so far coming out of Burkina Faso is not tribal. We have a quote-unquote group, the Black Flag group, the new boogeyman, the new boogeyman fighting the current transitional government. And the transitional government is saying that France is financing the rebel forces, which is supposed to be a jihadi rebel force.
But this is what Black Panther. This is why I say it's the same cycle. The reason an opposition could finance an opposition for you is because there is opposition for you willing to die for it. And the reason there's opposition willing to die is because you were an opposition that killed. If you were an opposition that killed, you will have opposition willing to die. And how is that going to smooth over at any point in time?
It's a more religious situation, and at the end of the day, both sides is Muslim. Both sides are Muslim, fighting each other.
Right. And don't you think that if both sides are Muslim fighting each other, there may be divisions beyond just religious under the surface?
The possibility exists, but...
And what do you think those divisions might be?
But again, Nathan, just like any government around the world, you're going to have opposition.
It's not any government. It's not any government. As far as we know, as far as the public record goes, Tanticams and they didn't kill anybody to get in where they are. So there aren't people willing to kill them to get them out. It's part of the Haiti problem. When you form a government based on the principle that if I don't like what happens, I should violently take over, and then you form a government like that in a fractious place, in a place where there are many fractions, what is going to be the outcome? Lots of these people aren't going to like the leadership, and the ideology that is current in the place says violent revolution is the way to go when you don't like the leadership. It's why so many countries attempt to push democracy and democracy and democracy. And why, even though I know democracy isn't the ideal perfect solution, I am better with democracy generally than many of the other choices, because the other choices generally lead to violence. A lot of people love him. How you know that? How you know that? Anyway, people, it's 11:47. Let me outside of his country. Good way to praise that.
I think it must have violence at some point in time. Look, the history of the United States has started on violence. Before they was able to come to agreements. Europe, it was violence. Before they was able to come to agreements.
Correct.
Apparently, this is just how they decide the thing that's go somewhere along the line. It had to happen. Somebody had to do it. Somebody had to be the strong person to get up and say, if that person is that person, we going down that road now when we doing this. Somebody has to do it.
You see, with that, no, my position is that I am never calling for revolutionary action because I know violence only begets the fact that we have a society torn, and to rebuild that is a madness now. No, do I know it's going to erupt in its final like form? Yes, of course. It is going to. It gets down to that pretty quickly if we get it around that, especially in countries where it's always been fractured, right? Haiti, many African countries, the Middle East to some degree. You understand what I'm saying? My thing is this, is that when we want to call for preemptive violence because we look at history that way, that's a madness, right? You know what I'm saying? We learn from the people of the past, that we don't make these ridiculous mistakes. Because here's what I'm saying, right? We could all be well and fine to call for revolutionary action, but let me tell you something. You all do not want to live in a country where the man who gives you bread holds an AK-47 and tells your child how they're supposed to be educated under Marxist-Leninist theory. So my thing is this, is that I would call for better judgment and reason with your head top now, boy, with your brain, rather than we call for somebody picking up arms.
I think the nature of a revolution is it's a very hard thing to balance. Yes, there are some places that formed in violence and smoothed it out over time. There are different historical reasons for that, and each one you could study the historical reasons for it. It's a very difficult thing to do though. And more often than not, it creates cycles of violence. That's what happens more often than not, to me. So to me, I would prefer generally reformation over revolution. The idea of revolution is we topple everything and from the rubble we build a better future, which works very few times. The idea of reformation is we look at it in the flawed state it is and attempt to fix things as we go. I kind of prefer that one, personally, to me.
We would all prefer that one, but most times I know what has happened. Look at right here in Trinidad, right? Right here in Trinidad and Tobago. What had to happen anytime I was butler? What had to happen? What happened? And we was in a peaceful society.
No, well,
violence break out. Just now, violence had to happen for the people in an authority to decide here what's going on. There's too much upheaval going on. Let me come to the table and try to really sort this out. Violence had to happen.
No, but you have to understand when we're talking about these things, right? Okay, let me see how the American Revolutionary War took place. Now, before action was taken, they were debating things, They were debating things. It's just that the powerful person say, we're not going to debate anymore with you. And they retaliated. That's just how it goes. The same thing in France, right? They were talking. It's just the king say, hey, all you can't talk to me. I is the boss. And they behead him, right? Now, the outcome of beheading him and installing a government is the fact that they still came around and have an emperor that basically was worse than him. Short manner. So my thing is this, is if we're talking about the state of our place in terms of how revolutionary action come out, I get it, right? When you have the deplorable working conditions to the point where the people are working for 10 cents a day, I could see where people would get violent for that. Of course, nobody wants to live like that. Nobody wants to be slaves. So they go to revolt, of course. Nobody wants to live on a slave labor and slave wages and all that good stuff. And nobody wants to die just to make bread for their family, of course. But in terms of how we dealing with things now, we don't deal with that. Nobody works in a factory with their hands and all that good stuff and they get the finger cut off and not making quota. No. In Trinidad and Tobago, people are drinking matchas and going to 5 a.m. club and they want to talk about revolutionary action plan. Stop it. Stop it.
That's part of the thing. The idea of revolution is what caused it. What's the trigger? But as I said, my problem is violence begets violence by and large. And once you start it, who says you're able to stop it? That's the problem. It's not about cowardice or wanting my head down or anything like that. It's about being sensible with history and what happened in history. Freezer, sir, you know what's ironic to me about about all the Marxists that like to talk about anti-colonialism? Free market capitalism, free market, is basically the founding principle of the African tribes. It's not a European creation. It's how all tribes dealt with each other in a free market basis. Marxism, however, is from literally a white colonial power. And it was formed based around the Reformation in Germany, changing the philosophy of the Protestant Germans. So it's a Protestant German colonist philosophy that came to the south of the world, through the Westerners. And somehow, the gullible people among us have convinced themselves that the ideology of the Europeans is the real anti-colonial ideology. Like, how gullible can we be? Can we be any more gullible? Quoting from a man who made it clear he hated you. Marx hated you. All of his contemporaries hated you. They found that your race wasn't smart enough to follow their theory. And you're here holding on to their coattails, failing after failing after failing in each place it tried, but you still grab on holding on. You still grab on holding on, pleading with them, please, I want to be a Marxist-Leninist too, please. They don't like you.
Frieza, let me tell you something. Marxism is very, very, very clear on what they think about different groups of people, especially, class of people. So, I'm telling you are wrong based on the Marxist-Leninist theories that are out there. They are very much willing to suppress a minority group of people in order to get their way. That sounds very fascist to me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Most Marxists don't read Marx. They don't know Marx, and that's why they're Marxists. I don't think the Jamaat was filled with incels. If you know any men inside the Jamaat, sir, incel isn't their modus operandi. The Jamaat wasn't looking for incel. I think probably every Jamaat member more than passed their replacement number. Let's put it that way. Those men were fruitful and multiplied.
But what convincing Abu Bakr even had to do? His whole cohort was part of his group. There's no convincing there. There's no need to convince. Come on, what are we saying today, bruv? Come on, we rewriting history right now for what purpose? For talk? Bruv, let me do that, bruv.
Anyway, before we reach midnight, communism is inherently opposed to nationalist movements to unite workers under the shared relation to production. Yes, you bought all of the propaganda. I know you did. But it's not true. But it's not true. You see, the idea of nations isn't good for the communists, of course, because they don't want anything above the party. And when you talk about the workers don't actually own the means. When they say the workers, they mean the top politician. That's who the worker is. The worker means Lenin and Stalin. The workers of the USSR didn't have decisions in the matter. It was Lenin and Stalin on behalf of the workers, you know. Like nobody ever read Animal Farm out here. On behalf of all the animals, we the pigs will make the decisions because you know we don't want advantage. So in order for the humans not to advantage you, we will make all the decisions on the behalf of you because we care about you that much. The free market says like people, I like to point this out every time. I know we always talk about this, but I hope that each time some young person throws away belief in Marxism when we go through this. Imagine this. What Marxism is attempting to convince you is, if you go to work and you're paid $20, they're telling you what would be better. It's not that you get paid the $20, because when you go to work and get paid the $20, your boss is taking advantage of you. So what needs to happen is you need to go to work and get no money. And the state, the government, the politicians, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, Colm Imbert, Dr. Keith Rowley, people like that are going to decide what happens to the $20 you make when you work. Because that makes more sense. They will spend your money better than you. You don't know how to spend your money. And when you decide how much you want to sell your labor for, the big shots make money off of you. They take advantage of you. Listen, if you go and work for this big farmer and you plant corn on his behalf and he pays you money, he is taking advantage of you. So here's what. Don't work for him. Work for the government and plant the corn for the government. And the government will feed you and clothe you and put you in a house. And you don't have anything to worry about. You just have to work for us. And we will take care of everything for you. And these people expect you to believe this. I hope even 12-year-olds, when they hear this, understand the foolishness that this is.
Nathan, I'm going to tell Trini one thing. Listen, I think I read some of the wrong books too young in life, because I was reading about the French Revolution and thing. I think the French Revolution was marvelous. The cure for headaches. The cure for headaches.
Are you mad?
Listen. The cure for headaches. Trini, the cure for headaches, if introduced to Trinidad and Tobago, will do wonders.
Brother.
Here's my question, Black Panther. Who was the French Revolution marvelous for?
Obviously, people paid, people suffered. We know.
Who was it marvelous for? So who didn't suffer? Who got a better result because of the French Revolution?
The transitional government, all the military officers that fought the revolution.
But Trini, you know the transitional government didn't even get a better end. Ask Robespierre, because he got the cure for headaches too. They hung everybody till they hung each other.
You know what it was? Is a good warning. So when you get arrogant, carried away in a position of power.
That's not even true, because Napoleon
That's not true.
Napoleon, who spearheaded basically the French Revolution to some degree, became the Emperor of France and led France through military campaigns all throughout of Europe and ran the country straight down into the ground, to the point where they have to do the same thing all over again.
Napoleon, let me put a caveat on that. Napoleon didn't spearhead the revolution. Napoleon was the convenient grabber up of the dregs when it's left. And that's my problem with revolutions. It's my problem with riots. It's my problem with protests. If I go to a riot and we mash up everything in this place, who benefits after that? Is it going to be some gang leader that comes into the vacuum of power and takes up that power? Do I have a plan on who is going to benefit? So I say the French Revolution was marvelous, but marvelous for who? Nobody. There isn't a group of people that benefited. The royals didn't benefit, of course. The revolutionaries were revolutionary until they killed each other. Everybody was dead by the end. The people of France suffered. The economy collapsed. It went worse. The history of France in terms of the society suffered. They went from a monarchy where you had a monarch who at least had the vested interest, selfish as they are. You went to an empire now, where the emperor looks to conquer all for him. So who was benefited?
Nathan, that was already suffering.
Okay, but you could suffer more. You see, this is the chain up that people get. Oh boy, things already bad enough. Let me just turn it upside down. It could get worse. It can get worse. So the idea that things bad, so let me just do anything, that's insane to me. Because it can get worse. That's the idea that I keep saying. There are many more ways to die than there are to live. There are many more ways for something to be dysfunctional than for something to be functional. There are many more ways to create chaos than there are to create order. So if you have something even semi-ordered, that's why reform makes more sense.
I agree. Seek reform first, negotiate, talk, do all the back and forth, dot all the I's.
Well, in that case, Black Panther, I am 100% in agreement of where you're going there. As, who was it? Was it the British Churchill? Walk quietly, but carry a big stick. I agree with that. So, it cannot be that in your reform, there's an idea that you would forever be docile and you have zero threat to you. I agree you must have some idea that there's a threat at some level. That's why I'm in agreement with arming the population. That's what arming the population does. There's always a threat level there. Always. And I'm in agreement with that. But I'm saying as the population, you should understand you do not want to go over that line. Because most times there's no coming back.
Dan, that's all I'm saying. The fear factor, the threat factor must always be there. Or without that, your politicians do not care about you. They do not fear you. They do not fear the possibilities. They don't. As long as that is not there, they don't.
That's what the basis of where America is at. Like, the American citizens have never had to do a revolution in their modern history. Right? Even though within their constitution a well-regulated militia is the thing that keeps the government not becoming a tyrant on itself and upon its citizens. So, by and large, America can launch a revolution tomorrow, if they feel good and ready to do so, right? If they feel the government are being tyrants, but it's always a balancing act when it comes to that kind of thing. And I think that what keeps America kind of in the shape that is in now. It's never lopsided now. You know what I'm saying?
There is enough comfort for us to negotiate still.
Yes.
Of course, America always negotiates.
In Trinidad, there is enough comfort for us to negotiate still. That's 100% true. Hey, on this note, people, let this be a closing statement. It's already after midnight. So,
closing statement. The wonderful saying from George Orwell, Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
That was the closing statement.
Literally, though. Literally.
Okay, but I'll go and would you go after because you had the most wonderful contributions tonight, guys. I just still didn't get to say what I was going to say. And see that later on here, I am in charge, so the live will go on a little longer.
What?
I wanted to point out two things, right? Later, let me come back to pass. Two things. We are a young nation. Let us not forget that. countries and not people. Countries are able to live on for really as we don't know how long this country will live for. You know, so let's not look at our last 60 something years and be like, we didn't accomplish much. I mean, who's to say? Who is to say that? We're still young. America's like, what, 400 years? And we continuously compare ourselves to like America and Europe and these people have years of us. We are babies in this thing. So, you know?
I mean, America also babies in this thing if we getting good already to talk about it.
Well, okay, great. And we's babies to them. So what I mean,
We're newborn.
we's egg.
We are fetus.
So right. So like let's not pretend like, you know, we didn't make great strides in our time. Yes, things are not where we would like it to be, but I mean we make it somewhere. Second thing I want to point out, and I had said my hand was up. My hand was up. So Nisa, yeah, let me say this.
You go ahead.
The Minister of Defense, I don't know how. We clearly something wrong with our head. The Minister of Defense got up and made a statement. Oh, the National Security Council make up for this amount of Africa and here and there and there and there, and we wouldn't do nothing to whatever. Well, I remember this speech. And I was like, you know something, I would feel a little bit more comfortable if it had a balance, a better balance. Because African person might say, you know what, it's not racist if I do it, you know? I can suppress all the African people I want because I African too. What are you gonna say? A racist? But if an Indian person there, they might have to do some introspection, like, am I going too far? Because then you fear the label of like, oh, am I really racist? You know, I kind of like a little accountable. It's like you can't pull that from a full one, like, oh well, we's one of them too, kind of way. If you ask me, one of them is some house. What Fali did say the time. But I remember what Fali did say the time. I didn't say it, Fali said. If you ask me, because that's not how you just say it. You don't address people like that and say, well because we're Africans, like something just go. That's not how it just go. You don't comfort people like that. You comfort people saying, well, we are knowledgeable and we are honest people, we have integrity, so we will do what is right for the country, not because we're African. And we're proud African, this and proud African, that. Boy, gone from you. Just stupid stuff. I said, that stupid fools we have in this place, boy. Anyway, so big up them. And lastly, with my last point, I can't remember what I was going to say. I'm tired, but I enjoyed the night. It was lovely as always. I'm trying to find a little outfit to go this weekend. So, bye.
Well, I say, Nathan, Trinidad need to stop being so docile and only studying till I'm on the avenue and go in the latest food court, because just now they can't afford that. Right? Go and read a book. Do something. Stop being so docile and entertained and distracted. You need to wake up from that.
Disagree. As always. You cannot force people into your revolution.
Guilty as always, yes.
As always. Yeah. Because you cannot. Your revolution will come and people are uneasy. Your the mere fact that you're saying, like, we on the avenue and we like, whatever, we are comfortable as is. When we become uncomfortable, then we start to, you know. I was shocked. I wanted to talk about Philip Alexander. Comment about KFC. What do you think about KFC saying the slaves slow down?
Again, or you can't afford just now.
They can't afford it.
But it could be too late.
It is never too late. Countries are not people. You don't have a too late for a country.
How much for 5 pieces in KFC? How much for 5 pieces in KFC?
I don't know. I don't buy KFC.
What's something like that? How much?
I don't know. How much are 5 pieces of chicken in the grocery?
I just go at the depot. I don't go and then go rub me in the grocery.
Very good. Very good. You know the price of where you just go. And everybody, it's are people who's go buy Massey and buy the chicken and you find it too expensive. People are comfortable where they at. Stop trying to force people into discomfort. It will never happen.
We
When
are
they're
forcing.
uncomfortable enough, then they'll start to make the noise. Or they'll leave because Trinidadians have money.
I think, for my closing statement, to return to the Zoso a bit, I feel if I was an independent senator, I was voting against it, personally. This present government hasn't shown that they're planning well enough and they're reasonable enough to imbue them with this much added power. And then the arrogance with which they're attempting to go about it makes it even less tempting to give them more power. They seem very arrogant, and arrogant people aren't the people you want with more power. As much as I am in agreement that in order to change the crime situation in Trinidad, very likely there would be rights that would have to be sacrificed and all of that. But if we want to do something drastic, let's do drastic starting with the judiciary and the police. And if there was a drastic shake-up in the judiciary, if a case happened where they use the state of emergency and you see 2 judges and a team of 10 senior officers go down to holding for the state of emergency and emergency powers, they sign something and lock up a set of the judiciary and the police. Then all of a sudden I start to think, all right, this is actually getting serious. Then if they take away people's rights in a community, it looks like they're serious about having change. But if nothing happens to the facilitators, but you're saying you're going to take away rights of the person on the street in order to decrease crime, while we know there are facilitators of crime out there that we are not dealing with, that seems like you're using a scapegoat. And it seems like the only thing that can come of that is abuse. That's the only thing that could really come of that. No positive change because you haven't tackled the facilitators. That's my view. I guess we'd see how the independent senators vote. Until next time, people, hold it down. Stay good, stay well, stay inside, outside, sketchy. I hope you are educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live. I'll see you guys again for the next one. Tomorrow night, I believe I should be here around that 9 p.m. time. Until then, people, stay well. Laters. Be mindful, not mindless. I'm out. Bye. Laters Instagram. Laters Facebook. Wow, 2 hours and 19 minutes. We well go.